Hey guys, you are listening to the Courage and Clarity podcast, or perhaps you are watching the Courage and Clarity video show. Either way, I'm Steph Crowder, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about tossing out the good old 5-year plan. So we are going to be talking about the question, how do I create my 5-year life plan and craft out exactly what I want the next 5 years to look like? We're going to replace it with a different question and some different strategies that I think can be a little bit more useful, especially when you're dealing with a time where you don't really know what the future holds. I mean, that's always true, but here we are in May of 2020, and I would say, at least in my lifetime, there's never been probably any less certainty in terms of not even knowing what's going to happen next month. So we're going to kind of swap out that idea of how do I build my long-term plan, and we're going to get into some brass tacks for questions that you can ask yourself, still making progress in your business, still reaching your goals, but doing so in a way that's better aligned when you're working, not knowing what's going to come down the pipe next. So let's get into it and toss out our 5-year plans. Welcome to the Courage and Clarity podcast. I'm Steph Crowder, and these are real, honest stories from online business builders. These entrepreneurs had the gumption to go for it, and they're brave enough to share what it really takes to earn an independent living doing something you love. All right, so if it happens to be your first time tuning in, I'm Steph Crowder. I am a sales coach and business strategist over at courageandclarity.com. You can find me on Instagram at courageandclarity, and I'm really here to help people find and balance the head and heart of entrepreneurship. And what I really mean by that is I like to try to provide heavy doses of instruction. So how to do certain things, for sure, that's useful, but also, inspiration, also the sort of motivational side of things, because it's not just brute force that helps us get things done. There's questions such as, how do I stay motivated? How do I get inspired? How do I make sure my heart is in this versus it all being a game of strategy all the time? So I'm excited for today's episode. I have been, at the time of this recording, I've been doing more sort of short, snappy YouTube video turned into podcast type of episodes. If you're a longtime listener to the show, you're much more familiar with these sort of longer form, more casual episodes with me. And so if you've been looking for one of those, you might be excited to know that that is what we're doing here today. So I'm playing around with balancing the two different types of episodes. We've got short, snappy, instructional videos that can kind of get you in and get you out in 10 minutes or less. And then sometimes I will be, having more of a sit down chat about topics where I can I'm never scripted, but even less scripted and more conversational. And these topics in particular, these sort of longer form episodes, are mostly inspired by my students. And today's episode is no different. So if you know me, you may know that I have a signature training program called Crickets to Customers, where I teach people to go from feeling like they have no idea what they're doing. A lot of my students actually have some traction. They do have an idea. They've worked with some students. But either way, what unites my customers is this feeling that they want to get really rock solid clear on what it is and who they're serving, and really expand their audience, build a community, and start to get customers in a consistent and reliable way. And in case you want to learn more about that, I do have a free training where you can totally dig into my 6-step framework and learn a lot. You can go to courageandclarity.com/workshop for my totally free 6 steps to go from Crickets to Customers workshop. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll make sure there's a link in the description that will take you straight there. And I bring that up because today's topic was inspired by a question from one of my Crickets to Customers students. He asked such a good question. It went something like this. He said, I know it's really important that I make long-term goals, that I create and set long-term goals, but every time I go to do that, I I don't feel very motivated by them. I don't feel very jazzed up. And he sort of went on to say, I don't know if that means that I'm just not driven enough, that maybe I should just stop being so lazy. He was really kind of having a hard time figuring out why he couldn't get more engaged in and excited about setting 5-year goals. And I think it's a really good question. So I wanted to dig into it here because probably, I would say always, but especially now, as I already touched on lightly, in the midst of a global friggin' pandemic where, like I said, it's May right now when I'm recording this. Who knows when you're listening or watching? You have the gift of hindsight. So maybe this thing is still raging. Maybe we're coming out on the other side. But either way, this question was asked in the midst of, global lockdown. And to me, I think it should come as no surprise that setting 5-year goals, making long-term plans, it just doesn't resonate right now, And that's not to say that you can't get a lot done. That's not to say you can't make serious progress. That's not what I'm saying at all. In fact, as we sit here right now, we're not even, as I'm recording this, I'm not even halfway through May, and May is already my best revenue month of 2020. I'm working less than seriously ever because I have a 4-year-old and an 8-month-old and no childcare. And yet May has been my very best month of 2020. So it's not that we can't be successful. It's not that you can't be driven or ambitious or engaged. But first of all, if you are someone out there right now who's like, yeah, I'm just not vibing with 5-year plans, I mean, who could blame you? We don't even know if our kids are going to school in the fall, okay? We don't know if offices are going to be open. We don't know if there's going to be a vaccine or treatment. We don't know what is going to happen. And if you're watching this in the future and the pandemic is long behind us, let's all hope that that's true, you can still think of ways that this applies. If you're sitting there thinking, man, I'm just not resonating with 5-year plans, I want you to ask yourself, do I feel like there's a lot of uncertainty for me in the next 5 years? The answer is, probably yes. And so I think it's normal and there's nothing wrong with you and you're not doing it incorrectly if setting longer term goals, it just not vibing with you. You're just not feeling it. So I want to offer a different question, and that's where I want to start this conversation. So instead of the question, what do I want my life to look like in 5 years? I laugh because it's like that classic interview question, right? What do you want your life to look like in 5 years? I have a different question that I want you to try out. And it goes like this. How do I want to feel today? How do I want to feel today? How do I want to experience life in the now, the here and now, there is no tomorrow? And I think you can see how, whether we're in a global pandemic or not, this is a really powerful question, or I suppose it's technically 2 questions, but it's a very, very powerful reframe. You see, the question, what do I want my life to look like in 5 years? It delays all of your gratification for 5 years. It's the retirement mindset. It's I'll hate life now so that I can prosper later. Now, again, I'm not here to say, blow all your life savings and don't plan for the future, fly by the seat of your pants. That's definitely not the message. But isn't it interesting how as a society, we have been programmed to put our happiness in the future? We really have, when I get the degree, I'll be happy. When I lose the weight, when I find the marriage, when I fill in the blank, I'll be happy. And what do I want my life to look like in 5 years question, it trends too closely for my personal comfort towards putting my happiness in the future. Here's the thing. How I want to feel today and allowing that to be my guide, how do I want to experience life in the now? That informs your 5-year plan, doesn't it? Imagine if you were to wake up every day for the next 5 years asking those questions. How do I want to feel today? How do I want to experience life right now? What's that going to do, for you in 5 years? Because you may think to yourself, well, I don't know. If I want to ask, how do I want to feel today? I want to eat the chocolate today. I want to get drunk today. I want to slack off today. You might think that, but here's what I believe. I believe that even if you were feeling that way, you would allow yourself to do that for maybe a couple days, few weeks max, you can only binge Netflix for so many days and weeks in a row before you look at yourself and you say, I want to make something of myself. I'm here to do something with my life. I mean, I believe that if you're watching this video or listening to this podcast right now, you're doing so because you have a fire inside of you. You have something that you care about. You desire to make an impact on this world, or else you wouldn't be doing this. You wouldn't be sitting here on whatever night it is of the week, whatever morning, you could be doing anything else right now. And you're listening to a podcast about what to do instead of, making a 5-year plan. And presumably you're listening to this or watching this because you have made 5-year plans before, or it's something that you think you should have, right? So you're a motivated person. You're a gifted person. If you trust yourself, this is really about trusting yourself. If you trust yourself to feel into how you want to show up today, even if you did decide, I don't want to do anything today, my point is you would only do that for so many days in a row before you'd say, I think I want to do something with myself. It's kind of like if you ate ice cream for every meal. How many days in a row would you eat ice cream for before you finally said, God, I got to put something green in my body. Like I need a salad. Trust that you would compensate. Trust that you would, the aggregate would make it all come out even. And it does take a tremendous amount of trust. And we are, what I'm asking you to do is dismantle how you've been taught to think. But it's a really important work because when you challenge yourself to feel into how you want to experience life in the now, what you're doing is you're asking your intuition, your inner guidance, your own knowing that you were born with. You are activating that. You are starting to train yourself away from looking to the external to tell you what you should be doing with your life. And that makes, our societal structures really uncomfortable because they love when we rely on them, when we look elsewhere, when we look to advertising to tell us what to do with our life and to tell us what to do with our time. But if you have the courage to ask yourself, how do I want to feel today? And how do I want to experience life in the now? I'm very, very confident that you would end up in a better place in 5 years. So that's the first thing, the first seed that I really want to plant with this. Here's something else I'll share in response to this question. Kind of taking it back to the fact that 2020 is just a crazy, you might even say dumpster fire of a year in some ways. Let me share with you how I've been working, because if you've watched any of my YouTube videos, if you've seen me on social media, you have seen the giant calendar pages on my wall. I mean, I teach a free workshop and a paid workshop called Your Year on the Wall, where I teach people to plan their whole year. So you might be thinking, okay, Steph, look, this isn't lining up here. You're telling us to live in the here and now, and yet you stand on this pedestal of looking at a year at a time. If you are saying that, I would reply, fair enough. I do like to kind of think, typically I like to look at a year at a time and start to just kind of dream into a year and think about what could unfold for the year. And loosely, this is why if you look at, that year on the wall that I teach, I have Post-it notes and I don't write anything in pen on my calendar. I'm moving Post-it notes around. It's very fluid. It's an ever-changing situation. And my year that I plan in January never, ever looks the way that I thought it would come December, but that's not the point. The point is visioning and imagining and creating intention, thinking about reverse engineering really where it is that I want to end up. But here's the big but. In the year 2020, since March, I have been working in 1 month chunks versus a year. I recently taught a paid group called the Year on the Wall Tune-Up Workshop and 30-day coaching program. It was so much fun. It's coming to a close this week. I'm thinking about doing it again. So I can put a link in the show notes if you want to check that out for future, because it was really fun. For those folks who were part of that, you know what I'm about to say. We talked all about inside of that Year on the Wall tune-up, how to approach your year 1 month at a time. And that is how I'm operating right now. So I have no idea what I'm going to be doing in June, much less October. No idea. Because I don't know, like I said, I don't know if my kids are going to be in school. I don't know what is going to be happening. And I don't need to know. That's what's been really interesting is like, it's not all that relevant. So here's what I would offer to think about as you kind of like get, we talked about asking yourself, how do I want to feel today? How do I want to experience life in the now? But, you have the very real demands of putting food on the table and bringing money home and running a business. So you might be asking yourself, well, how does that fit in? My answer to that is think about it 1 month at a time. So I have talked about this, funnily enough, I've talked about this all year before coronavirus hit, about the power of knowing and understanding how much is enough for you individually, how freeing that is. Because if you're always just trying to if your answer to how much money are you trying to make in your business, if your answer to that is, well, as much as I can, that is a financial treadmill. It is a financial purgatory because it'll always feel like you're never making enough or doing enough. And the key, like the whole reason that you are a solopreneur, the whole reason that you are trying to build a living doing something that you love is so that you can be free, right? And you can't be free if you're always on the treadmill of making more. So the first key is to really know what is enough in your business. Now, I have a bunch of episodes that can help with this. We'll try to link them up in the show notes and in the description of the video so that you can go back. And particularly the episode that stands out is one that I did called 8-Month Year, how I think it's kind of botching the title of it, but it was 8-month year, how I worked 8 months and took a year off. It was all about my maternity leave last year because I hit my number for the year and I only worked 8 months. And that required that I was crystal clear on what my business needs to be doing from a revenue perspective to pay myself in a way that gives my family a great life, makes me comfortable, but allows me to step away and step back and disengage and say, yeah, this is enough. I don't need to make more than this right now. This is good. We're good. And so what I suggest and what I've been doing that's really been serving me well, and again, allowing me to have my strongest months of 2020, is asking myself, what is that number? I already knew that number for me. I've shared before that at least as of the way my business stands right now, bringing in $10,000 a month in revenue allows me to pay myself the way that I want to pay myself, and allows me to pay my team, the people who help me out, and reinvest in my business, pay taxes, and all that good stuff. So a good rule of thumb is to take the number that you need to be bringing home and double it. That becomes your revenue number each month. So if you were to ask yourself, my number being 10,000 because I like taking 5,000 home. If you ask me to go rock bottom, it's 2,500 that I got to be taken home. That's the number that I need to be contributing to my family. Here's what I've been teaching and doing is I've been keeping a revenue tracker each month and just keeping track of where am I to my goal? Where is it going to come from? If I haven't hit it yet, what do I need to do? And what can I do to make sure that this number is being hit? Okay. And once that happens, once I do hit that number, I can start to move on to some of those bigger, more expansive, more growth-based projects. So this is where like some of the things that I would normally work on in a year view start to come into play. So for example, if I've already hit my 10,000 revenue for the month, or I know where it's coming from, I know I'm going to have new clients, or I know certain projects are already accounted for, and I can tell that I'm in good shape and good standing for the month, I start to turn my attention wholeheartedly on my growth plan, which for me, and I think I may have shared this already here on the podcast and in the show, is I'm trying to double my email list right now because I know that my customers are typically people who are following me in the email inbox. And so when I switch my attention to, I start to ask myself, what can I do to grow my email list? Can I do webinars for, audiences of my friends who have different audiences than me? Can I start to play with some ads? Can I intentionally grow a YouTube channel or a podcast? What can I do to start to really work towards that goal? What I end up doing is I end up making progress towards the goals that I would have set for the year anyway. But I'm just looking at it month by month, and I'm trusting, again, I come back to trust. I'm trusting that I'm going to know what I need to do when the clock resets on June 1st. It's important to point out that I'm not totally starting from zero when June 1st hits. I have some sense of where some of that number is going to come from for me. That looks like recurring revenue. So perhaps you have clients that you know are going to be paying you next month. It's helpful if you have at least some sense of where part of that number is going to come from. I can tell you that for me, 35% of my goal is already accounted for with recurring revenue. And then I just kind of trust myself and know that I will be able to generate the remaining 65% based on my pipeline, based on how I sell, based on my experience. So for you, if you're sitting there thinking, man, I don't know how I'd hit my goal month over month, that's the first thing for you to start working on, is knowing your minimum viable income and starting to learn how to hit that month over month. I would say focus on nothing else but that for a while. It's just knowing that minimum viable income and making a plan to bring in that number. Don't look beyond that until you're at that point. What's the point of looking beyond that until you are in a place where that's your reality? Okay, that's really the most important thing, I think. The other thing I really want to point out that I was thinking about, what do I want to say about tossing out your 5-year plan? I'm recording this in the evening, and I just had a sip of my Sam Adams. If you're watching video, you just saw that. So I'm kind of having a beer with you guys. It feels really fun to just do a podcast in this style. I want to talk about the difference between mission and goals. This is really fascinating, I think. So it's really easy in my mind, I think, to mix up your mission and your goals. They just kind of all swirl together. You see it in your head as like the thing I'm working on, right? My project, my business, the impact I want to leave. It's all kind of just one weird conglomerate. But if we were to tease apart mission and goals, here's what they are. Mission is why you do what you do, like why it matters, right? What is your mission? What are you here to do? I'm here to help people who want to work for themselves sell in a way that is easy, repeatable, fun, and more invitation-based versus sleazy, full of resistance, full of mystery, and overall uncomfortable. Like, this makes me really excited to help people learn about connection-based selling and consultative selling and building community. That's what I do really well, and I love doing it. On a broader sense, I love helping people, particularly women, because we're moms and it's really hard. I love helping moms create their own financial freedom and show up for their kids in whatever way they choose. Just having the ability to never be at somebody else's beck and call and be on the field trip and work in your home office or work on the beach or world school or whatever it is that you want to do. Like, that's my mission. That's what maybe you can tell if you're watching this or listening, you can tell that I'm speaking from the heart right now. That's my mission. So you think about that. You're always grounded in that. That never changes for me, and it never will. That's what I care about. And no matter whether I'm teaching a course or coaching students one-on-one or doing YouTube or podcast, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. It doesn't matter how much money I'm making. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. It all comes down to, like, that's the how. That's how I'm making my mission come true. But it doesn't change the mission itself. Does that make sense? The mission stays constant. How I fulfill that mission changes based on so many factors: what the market's doing, what people respond to, what I feel like, what my capacity is, bazillions of factors. But my mission is what I'm always grounded in. And so you look at goals. Goals come and go. Goals are a means to that end. Goals are as good as the mission that underlies them, as the foundation. Goals are there to help you fulfill your mission. That's the point of a goal. And goals should not stand on their own. Goals are not their own. And I think we treat them as like a standalone thing. Like, what's your goal? But the reality is, a goal that's not grounded in a mission is very hollow. You could say, I want to make $100,000 this year. Why? What does that do for you? Like specifically, your mission might be, I want to give my kids a really great life. I want to be really specific with what that great life looks like. I want them to go to any school they want to. I want to give back. I want to impact the community. Yeah, that's your mission. Okay. Your goal of making $100,000 is there to serve your mission. So I'd much rather see you toss out the 5-year goals and the 5-year plan and just ask yourself, what is the mission? Like, what am I here to do? And people get really lost in that. So I don't bring that can of worms up to help you to kind of get you going, oh my gosh, I don't know what my mission is. Like, what am I here to do? That question drowns me too. It's too big. It's like too much commitment. So instead I ask you, what do you care about? What is it that you want to help people do? What do you care about for your family? What do you care about for your community? What matters? Your 5-year plan is all just helping support the fulfillment of that. And so stay grounded in what you care about doing. Stay grounded in the life that you're trying to build. Stay grounded in the people that you're trying to touch and the people that you're trying to impact. And your goals fall into place. So maybe that's a comforting thought, is just focus on what matters, which is, what are you trying to do? And if you just challenge yourself to keep taking the next best step towards making that a reality, you can't lose. The only way you lose is if you sit on the couch and you give up. That's the only way that you lose. So really think about that. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't get crazy with like, oh my gosh, what's my mission? But instead just focus on, what do I care about? Like, what matters? And go from there. So kind of brought up a question for me as I was thinking about this, as I start to sort of wind this conversation down a little bit. Will I go back to 1-year planning, 5-year goals after COVID-19? I asked myself that question, and the answer is maybe. I honestly, I don't know. This has been a really instructive, challenging, chaotic, crazy, stressful time, but it's been very, like I said, instructive. It's been, like I said, I best month of the year so far from a revenue perspective, working the least I've ever worked, has been the month of May. And that's meaningful. The proof is in the pudding. Right now, I can tell you that even asking myself right now, like, do I want to look at a year out? Do I want to look at 5 years out? I can tell you it's not appealing at all. And that might be because there's just so much unknown, so much more unknown than usual, that I just, like, my brain just gives like an error, like a do not compute, did not compute, didn't get the request. What now? You're talking about a year from now? Like, what are we doing in July? So right now it's not appealing at all. So I'm just not going to rush myself on thinking a year out or 5 years out. Again, I remind you, it's really important to remember that goal setting strategies are just that. They're strategies. They're techniques that are support mechanisms that are intended to help you. Okay, they are not the entire thing themselves. I have some of my students and customers and clients and friends and community members who I can tell are really beating themselves up about the fact that their year on the wall that they created, that beautiful view with the Post-it notes, they're really feeling down that that's like out the window. And I want to remind you again that that is just a mechanism. That is just a strategy. It's not the whole picture, not even close. It's a means to an end. So what I want to really leave you with when it comes to goals is this. If they stop being helpful, it's time to do something else. If thinking about the next 5 years is not helpful, it's stressful, it demotivates you, it makes you feel like a piece of crap, whatever, that's not helpful, and it's time to think about what is going to help you. Goals are only as good as their ability to help you fulfill your mission. So again, I remind you, instead of that question, what do I want my life to look like in 5 years? I want you to ask, how do I want to feel today? How do I want to experience life in the now? And can I trust myself that I'm not going to just eat 700 bowls of ice cream and never work again? Can I trust my intuition, my knowing, my deep knowing, my internal guidance to take me to the next best step? And I'll seek out help and coaches and programs and trainings and resources and books. I'll seek out that stuff when I need it. But can I trust myself to just focus on that next step? Can I trust myself to take it 1 month at a time? Be kind to myself. Be really, really kind to myself in the meantime, because, life is hard enough as it is. And certainly it's been a whole different ballgame in 2020. So the last thing you need to do is beat yourself up for not having a 5-year plan. So there you have it. That's what I suggest instead of a 5-year plan. I hope that this has been helpful. If it has, I would love to hear from you. If you're watching on YouTube or on social media, tell me in the comments what stands out to you. Did you have an aha moment? If you're listening in a podcast, come on over to your favorite place to hang out. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. Maybe you get my emails. You can reply to my emails there. Just let me know. I'd love to hear from you. What was helpful? What are you going to take away from this conversation? Instead of a 5-year plan, what are you going to do instead? That's all for now. I am wishing you the courage and the clarity to go after what you love.